Hey everyone, my name is Nigel Bajos, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a quick review of this Comica AX1. In its simplest form, this is just a audio mixer. So what it allows you to do is put two different mics into the same source and then run that into your camera. But another cool thing about this mixer is that it's not just a passive mixer. This can also power mics like the Comica VM10 or the Rode Video Micro, and the way it does that is it actually has two AAA batteries in here, and when you turn it on, there's actually power inside of this little mixer. When you plug in those two mics, is you can actually control the audio levels of each of the mic, the right and left side. So you can control individually the gain levels of those mics. Now it does boost the gain ever so slightly, but in my testing, it didn't actually boost it enough to get around the bad preamps of some of the older cameras like the 60D and the 70D. You will need a mic that is powered and has a gain boost within the mic in order to get past the poor preamps of older cameras like that. But for most of you out there who are shooting with, mirrorless cameras like the Panasonics and the Sonys, you don't really have to worry about the bad preamp problem because most Panasonic and Sony mirrorless cameras have pretty decent audio preamps, so it's not that big of an issue. One of the applications that I think a device like this has a place for is if you're doing two-person interviews. For me, when I was doing a project where I was, filming a bunch of interviews, there was one case where I was interviewing a husband and wife, and I didn't have a way to plug two mics into my camera. So what I had to do is I had to mic one of them, run that into my camera, and then I had to put a separate mic on a separate recorder and then sync it in post. If I had a device like this, I could have just ran both of those mics into this device and then have it go right into my camera. So on this device, there is a switch for both the right and the left channels where you can switch it between line, mic, and the 3-volt power. Now you would use the 3-volt power to power mics like the Comica VM10, which is what I'm recording this on right now, or like a Rode Video Micro or something like that. And you also have options for line or mic. Now, the mic option would be for mics like the Rode Video Mic Pro or the Sennheiser MKE400, mics that are already powered that don't need that extra 3 volts. And the line option is maybe if you are running a Zoom H1 or a H4n. What that's going to do is it should attenuate it a bit so that it's not going to be as hot when it goes in to the mixer and then goes into your camera. So if I had a device like this when I was shooting weddings, I could potentially just put this on top of my camera and run the DJ sound right into this and then adjust the levels back here and get a nice clean track that would be what everyone else would be hearing through the speakers, but I'd be hearing it through this and then recording it in to my camera, while maybe a wireless receiver was being fed to the other channel. So I have a really good audio setup. And even if the wireless transmitter got glitches or something like that, I would still have a safety track on the right channel, which I could just double and fill in. So that's where I really feel like a device like this fits in, is that if you're doing, interviews or weddings or something like that, I always have two cameras when I'm doing weddings, and it's usually the camera that's shooting down the aisle that I'll try to run audio into just to get a nice safety track. And this device would be great for situations like that. So what I'm gonna do now is plug two mics into this mixer, and then I'll show you how you can adjust the gain levels of each mic. And you should hear the right and the left on the right and left side of your speakers because we're gonna be doing it in stereo and not in mono. So yeah, I would definitely suggest listening to this video with headphones on just so you can kind of get a better idea of what this little mixer is gonna be doing. All right, so now I have this little setup going, and if you're watching this video listening to it with headphones, you should be able to hear the different mics on each side of your headphones. So on the right here is going to be the Sennheiser MKE400. So now you should be hearing me on the right side of your headphones. And then on the left side over here, we have the Comica VM10, which is one of my favorite little mics. And the way that I'm doing this is that I have obviously both of them plugged in, the Comica to the left and the Sennheiser to the right. Now, obviously, I would never use a setup like this, but I just kind of want to demonstrate that you can individually change the audio gain for both your left and right channels. So this would be really useful if maybe you had two wireless transmitters, attached to each side of this mixer, and then you can run both of them into the mixer and then control each of the levels individually. So maybe if one person was talking a little bit louder than the other person, you could adjust accordingly to that. I can start talking into the Comica and then turn it all the way down And now you're probably only hearing me on the right-hand side of your headphones. And there's also a middle plug here. If for some reason you are only using one microphone, you could plug that into the stereo option here in the front. And as you can see, I am wearing headphones and I'm actually monitoring the audio right now as I'm recording it. I could plug it into my camera and monitor it there, but I know that there are a lot of people who use cameras that don't have headphone jacks. And so it is pretty nice that this little mixer comes with one, so you can actually monitor the audio that's coming into your mics. It's always better to monitor what's actually being recorded if your camera has a headphone jack, but if it doesn't, sometimes you can catch problems or mistakes that happen in the mics by just having a headphone jack right here. And the fact that this is powered also makes this headphone jack work really well. Like the levels are just perfect if you ask me. So it's really nice just to have a headphone jack if you need it. And the line out here is actually what's going out and then into my camera. So yeah, this works out really well. And this isn't necessarily a preamp, so you won't be able to turn the levels of your camera all the way down. You will have to adjust them. Mine, I think, are at like a 3 or a 4 as far as like on the scale, like 3 up, but it does give it just ever so slightly of a boost, and it powers mics like this little Comica VM10. I'm using the 3-volt power. If the 3-volt power wasn't on, the Comica VM10 would not work with this mixer. So all in all, I actually really like this little device. The only con that I would probably say is it is kind of big, and for me, I've been trying to like downsize my kit and make everything as small as I can, and there are smaller mixers out there, but they are not battery powered, so they're just going to be passive. So this one actually is pretty nice, and it gives you that headphone out. But other than its size, I think that for what it does, it's actually a pretty good deal for, I think it's around 60 bucks. And if you film events, weddings, interviews, stuff like that, I would definitely say that having this in your bag could definitely save you a lot of time and hassle. It has an attenuator in here, so you can run a line out straight into this mixer and then control the gain on the back here. So again, for around 60 bucks, this is actually a really cool little device that gives you a lot of audio options that most cameras just don't have built in. But yeah, I actually really like this. I'm gonna have links in the description to where you can pick this up. There'll also be a bunch of other links down in the description to a bunch of other gear that I use and recommend. As always, there's gonna be links to my Selfie account if you wanna pick up some of my $5 LUTs, or my Patreon if you wanna support me there. So yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.